it wasn't the worst month of my life. It was the most boring on my palate, I will say. Just like the whole idea of eating the same thing over and I mean, I think they eat more variety in prison than I did.
Well, Eddie, why don't we, Mike brought this up earlier. Why don't you just circle around and maybe, for someone who didn't listen to the show when we spoke about this project and experiment that you guys organized, like,
Th-
why don't you bring up, like,
thanks,
what was the goal?
thanks, Dylan. Thanks for.
Why did we do this? What did we do? How
I
did
was
we do it? And when I say we, it was Eddie. What did Eddie
well.
do for 31 days while we kind of stood on the sidelines
What we did was
watching?
Mike had a theory here, and that theory, uh, you were. It looks like you were somewhat right. Mike's theory was that if you ate crappy food or from crappy places like McDonald's, but you ate in a healthy manner, like you made healthy choices and exercised and lived a healthy lifestyle, that you wouldn't do the damage to your body that, say, you know what, Mike? I don't know why I'm explaining your theory.
I was wondering when you were going to
Yeah,
turn it over
thanks.
to me.
Okay, done.
So my contention was that there is a difference between a good F and a bad F. And maybe a good F wasn't even an F. Maybe it was a C minus, maybe it was a B minus, and maybe it could actually even be an A minus. And I say this because I taught a health and fitness physical education course, which was a general education undergraduate requirement at Pepperdine. 2-unit course that did basically 2/3 of it was physical activity and a third of it was sort of classroom dynamic, talking about the basics of anatomy, physiology, what the body did when underwent in strength and conditioning, as well as different things like how important sleep, nutrition, hydration, all that stuff was to a healthy body, which then goes on to help you have a healthy mind, healthy spirit, all of that kind of stuff. So students would get sometimes bad Fs on exams, and I would say, don't just get a good F, get 50% out of 100, not 0 out of 100. And in that same one of these same semesters, we watched the movie Super Size Me, because I taught like 7 sections of this course. I saw that movie like 7 times. Super Size Me, the guy for 30 days ate unrestricted McDonald's every time. He was asked if he wanted to supersize it. He had to supersize it. He had to eat everything on the menu. He didn't exercise at all. So in life, he was getting he was getting a bad F. He was eating everything on McDonald's menu as much as essentially he could, and within days he started kind of gag reflexing and throwing up, um, eating McDonald's every single meal, and it was horrible. And over the course of watching this movie 7 times in a row, I'm like, why is he doing this? Like, we know that this is bad. We didn't know how bad. I mean, he went deranged metabolism, like borderline, borderline everything, some things over borderline, and he was going to die soon. And it's hyperbole only a little bit. But the fact that he was going on the worst of the worst and eating as much as he possibly could, only for McDonald's, I thought, why doesn't he lead a pretty healthy lifestyle overall? Don't give up the exercise and try and try and eat from a, a a plethora of bad choices and just do as well as you could. So get a good F, and maybe it would, as uh, I don't know what grade we're going to assign Eddie on this in terms of how quote unquote healthy it was. Actually, I don't like to use the word healthy
Well, the data
in this
says that, Mike.
context
The data
specifically, but
speaks to that.
okay, okay. So what? We'll go. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Dylan in just a second. So the idea was to eat McDonald's for 30 days in a way that he would come out the other end having a body composition that wasn't 10 pounds overweight, losing muscle, gaining fat, feeling like crap, sleeping horribly, in addition to being so bored out of his mind that he'd never want to eat McDonald's again. And you probably didn't want to eat McDonald's
No.
ever again before you started this challenge. But when people say that they live in a food desert or they don't have access to good food and therefore you only have obesity and other horrible metabolic derangement, heart disease as a result of that. That's not the whole story, and in fact, it's not true. You can make better choices among horrible things that, like, you go to Vegas and there's a crappy buffet. I bet you can choose hard-boiled eggs, some vegetables, some health. There's olive oil, there's
Yep.
sesame seeds at the end of the salad bar, and you can do just fine. We just don't want to do fine when we have horrible choices in front of us. We make horrible choices unless you're Eddie Ift at the line at McDonald's making good choices. And again, we can turn it over to Dylan to let the to show. Nice job, Eddie.
Yeah, it was not easy. Day one, the first meal I ate was disgusting. I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever eaten. And Dylan will tell you because Dylan was watching all my I had a special scale. I want to thank the company that sent us the scale. Um, Norden, Noerden. It was this special scale that I could get my like body fat composition, my heart rate, all water composition, everything. And my in the first week, my weight shot up, which Dylan can explain why. I mean, I was like 10 pounds overweight after the first week. Now I went from like 170. What was my first weight? Like 174, Dylan?
No, sir. It
100
was. I believe it was higher. I don't have the data in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was like 178.9. So you did you
when
did
I
go up.
so I went to 182.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I went to 182 at my highest weight on it. And then I don't know if it was water retention or I was eating too many carbohydrates in the beginning because I would tell Dylan I'd call him at every drive through and I'd be like, what do I do? What do I do right now?
Well. Better. I mean, you sent me the images, which was really intrinsically simple because with an image, I can see what the bolus of protein is, what the consumption is. But continue. Yeah.
So we after a while, after we dialed it down, it became almost routine and it was very hard with what they offer to vary anything. And it basically came down to almost a carnivore diet uh, because there was very little other than the protein, from the beef, chicken, fish, and then the little bit of carbohydrates I was getting was from any breading on any chicken, and uh, and then the
Well,
fat was
we
from
had
the
you eat French
cheese.
fries, before
But
training. I want.
yeah, you're right. I take
Well,
that
we,
back.
we
There what
we want to be
there was
careful, Eddie, because it's like, well, we just went carnivore. Actually, no, man. I never had any designs purely on the carnivore. The
I take that back, Dylan. I'm mistaken. There were many times that I did a chocolate milk before a workout,
Yep, exactly.
or I did a smooth. We did the smoothie before the workout, but after looking at the smoothie, it was complete sugar, and it was like I might as well have drank a Coca Cola because the way that we learned from their apples, there's no skin on the apples whatsoever. So
So we
the
lose
apples were like
fiber, we lose pectin, we lose that's a component that slows down the glycemic response to that. So real fast, Eddie, why don't you tell them about what happened with salads? Because I was incredulous about this when you told me, and I had to Google it. But that because of COVID and all of the unfortunate stuff that
they
went on the last 2.5 years.
they eliminated salads during COVID. That's when the time when human beings are at their unhealthiest and that when health is the most important, McDonald's decided to eliminate salads. And I heard or read somewhere, like an article, that it wasn't selling well anyway. So they just
They're
to
slowly
cut
bringing them
back.
back, I guess. I just looked. They're slowly reinstituting them. But I guess it had to do with production and actually attrition. Like I guess they throw away a lot of salads, and because margins were so down during COVID that they started a lot of retailers whatnot eliminated quite like loose SKUs, if you will, keep that
And
margin up.
Yeah,
I'm shitting on McDonald's a lot.
it's got to be just it's got to be just an excuse to, because like you said, the margins aren't good, and it's probably a pain in the ass for them to order it
Yeah, I
for
think
the five
I
people that
don't
want it, that they
I
just got
don't
rid of
think
it. COVID was the
I
excuse.
I want to agree with you. I agree with you like on objective terms, but subjectively, I don't think anything was nefarious, man. I think and actually, it's going to be weird because it sounds like Eddie's kind of pooing on McDonald's, and I'm going to actually sound almost like an advocate here. because I've spent a lot of time during this experiment reading it, like what is their production, what are the preservatives, what are the fillers. Zero. How do they prepare their meat? It's like pretty remarkable. And I'll tell you what, from this learning experience, if I need to get protein somewhere and I'm going to struggle for it, guess where I'm probably going to go? Surprisingly, I mean, there's a bunch of wonderful stuff that's come out of this that's really opened up my eyes.